sound of bulldozers tore through the morning, quiet like a nightmare you can't wake up from. I ran out of my porch barefoot, coffee still steaming in my hand, and there they were, 3 bright yellow machines, grinding through the earth that used to cradle my pond. My pond. The one I built with my father 20 years ago, back when this was just wild land and dreams. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" I shouted, sprinting toward the site. One of the men in a hard hat lifted his head, barely glancing my way. "You'll need to step back, sir. This is HOA property. We're clearing the area for the new park extension." I froze. HOA property? I didn't even an HOA when I bought this place. My voice trembled with rage. "That water doesn't belong to your fancy community project. That's my land." The guy shrugged, climbed back into his machine, and waved me off like some crazy old man. But that pond wasn't just a patch of water, it was memory. It was where my wife and I sat on summer nights, feet dipped in the cool ripples, dreaming about growing old here. It was where my daughter learned to fish, her laughter echoing through the valley. And now, it was gone, buried under heaps of dirt. That night, I sat on the porch staring at the cratered land. My hands shook with fury and helplessness. I called the HOA office. No one cared. They said, "The board approved the project months ago." But something inside me snapped. I wasn't letting this go. The next morning, I drove to the county records office. The clerk, an older woman with kind eyes, handed me a dusty folder. "This property's history goes way back," she said, flipping through the pages. Then she paused. "Well, look at that. You've got the original water rights." "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning in. She smiled faintly. "It means that pond, every drop that flows through it, legally belongs to you. No one can touch it without your permission." A slow grin spread across my face. The HOA had made a big mistake. They thought I was just another quiet old man living at the edge of their perfect community. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. By sunrise the next morning, I was at the HOA office, a spotless glass building with manicured lawns, paid for by people like me. The receptionist smiled the kind of fake smile you give someone right before ruining their day. "I need to see your president," I said flatly. She blinked. "Do you have an appointment?" I leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. "No, but your bulldozers didn't have one either." That must have hit home, because 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from Charles Denton, the HOA president. He was the kind of man who never got his shoes dirty. The kind who believed paperwork could justify anything. "Mr. Parker," he said, flipping through a file. "The pond fell within the proposed park area. The board's within its rights." "Funny," I said, pulling a document from my folder and sliding it across the desk. "Because I'm within too. That's the original deed. It includes full water, rights signed and notarized. Before your HOA even existed." He stared at the page, color draining from his face. That can't be correct." "Oh, it's correct," I said, standing up. "You destroyed property you had no legal claim to. I'm giving you 48 hours to make it right." He laughed nervously. "Or what?" I smiled, calm and steady. "Or you'll see what happens when the little guy knows the law better than you do." That night, I called an old friend, Rachel Stone, environmental attorney and one of the toughest people I've ever known. When I told her what happened, she didn't hesitate. "We'll hit them with everything: property damage, environmental destruction, and water rights infringement." By the next week, the HOA's Pride and Joy project was shut down by a court injunction. Their equipment sat idle under a tarp, rain dripping from the edges like guilt itself. Neighbors started whispering. Some said I was crazy. Others said I was a hero. All I cared about was justice. Then came the letter, a formal apology drafted by their lawyers. But I tore it in half. Money couldn't fix what they destroyed? No, I wanted something else. I wanted them to it. A month later, the same men who bulldozed my pond stood knee-deep in mud, reshaping the land under court order. I watched quietly as water filled the basin once more, reflecting the sky like it was taking a deep breath after being held. Underwater too long. When the last shovel hit the ground, I turned to Charles Denton. "Now you understand," I said. "You don't own everything just because you can afford to." He nodded, defeated. "You made your point, Mr. Parker." I smiled faintly. "It's not just a point, Charles. It's a lesson. The pond was back. But it wasn't quite the same. The shape had changed, the earth freshly turned, and the smell of diesel still lingered faintly in the air. Yet when the morning sun hit the surface, the water shimmered like it had forgiven everything. I stood at the edge with a fishing pole in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. The ripples carried reflections of everything I'd fought for. Not just the land, but the principle that some things are worth standing up for, even when everyone says, let it go. My daughter, Emily, pulled up beside me, her car tires crunching the gravel. She hadn't been back home since college. When she saw the pond, her eyes widened. You got it back, she whispered. I nodded. The law caught up with them. She crouched down, brushing her hand across the surface. You always told me the water remembers? I smiled softly. And it does. It remembers who respected it and who didn't. For a while, we just stood there in silence. The birds had come back. Frogs croaked from the far bank. Nature, somehow, had started to heal faster than people ever could. Then I saw a car pull up, Charles Denton. The HOA president stepped out, no suit this time, just jeans and a plain t-shirt. He walked over slowly. Rain dripping from the edges like guilt itself. Neighbors started whispering. Some said I was crazy. Others said I was a hero. All I cared about was justice. Then came the letter, a formal apology drafted by their lawyers. But I tore it in half. Money couldn't fix what they destroyed? No, I wanted something else. I wanted them to it. A month later, the same men who bulldozed my pond stood knee-deep in mud, reshaping the land under court order. I watched quietly as water filled the basin once more, reflecting the sky like it was taking a deep breath after being held. Underwater too long. When the last shovel hit the ground, I turned to Charles Denton. Now you understand, I said. You don't own everything just because you can afford to. He nodded, defeated. You made your point, Mr. Parker. I smiled faintly. It's not just a point, Charles. Mr. Parker, he said, voice quieter than I'd ever heard. I came to say I was wrong. We shouldn't have touched your pond. I studied him for a moment, then nodded toward the water. You want to make it right? Keep this place safe, for everyone. Don't let greed ruin what you don't understand. He swallowed hard and nodded. You have my word. When he left, Emily smiled. You think he means it? I looked out over the pond. Doesn't matter. The water will hold him to it. That night, as the stars mirrored in the pond, I set down a lantern by the edge, just like my father used to. The wind was cool, carrying the faint sound of crickets and the peace I'd almost forgotten existed. I realized something then. Sometimes you don't fight because you want revenge. You fight because what's right deserves a voice. This land wasn't about ownership. It was about stewardship, about remembering that every tree, every drop of water, every inch of soil carries history. And when people forget that, it's up to someone, anyone, to remind them. I took a deep breath and whispered, Rest easy, old friend. They'll never take you again. The pond rippled softly under the moonlight, like it was saying thank you. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Stand your ground when something truly matters. Because sometimes doing what's right isn't about winning, it's about remembering what should never be lost.